another incredible guest. Today we've got Charlotte, who has the most amazing, yes, I am biased, um, business, and refined design has saved my ass a few times. I think that's a suitable way of putting it. So without further ado, hello, Charlotte.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited that we finally made this happen. And do you know, I think it's been a big lesson for me over the last wee while of taking on support in my business. And I think you've been such a key piece of that this year. So I'm really excited to have you on, not just to share about what you do, but just a little bit more about you because you're such a fantastic, phenomenal woman. And I think we have such banter in our voice notes. Like we have such a yeah, we do. So, like, it's such a privilege to have you here and to bring some of that to the podcast to share with everyone. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I am basically a graphic designer and sort of marketing slash social media expert. My favorite thing to do, as you know, is obviously branding and websites and all stuff like that. Designing all of those, but also in a way that's strategic. I've been doing this now for just about 6.5 years, so quite a while. So I know what I'm doing, but I still absolutely love it. It's just like my absolute passion. But yeah, it's kind of been a long journey to get to this point, and I'm still like evolving and growing and doing all the things to obviously build up refined design. But it's just been such a great journey, and I've met some incredible people along the way, including yourself. So yeah, it's all good. It's all going well.
I know, I love that though. Thank you for being so honest. I think, a big part of bringing these conversations is, sometimes it's not just a linear, right? You decide to start a business, click your fingers, and then everything's fine. It's a journey, it's a process, isn't it? And I think what you demonstrate so beautifully, though, is that, and what I certainly take from everything that we've done together is that you have so much joy for the design work that you do and for the client work that you do, and doing that alongside the juggle of everything else, but really just finding the joy in that and like those little wins, those little moments of like, oh, this piece of work or this project went really well for this client.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I just literally light up. Like whenever I work with anyone and it gets to the end of a project and it launches, and it's just so exciting, and it's just such a thrill and a joy to be able to do that to help people. Because I think sometimes the things that we find easy, obviously others don't, and vice versa. And it's so nice to be able to help each other out in all sorts of ways. And in terms of like, growing a business, like as you said, it's not a case of snapping your fingers. Like I would literally describe it as a complete roller coaster. And I think there's so much stigma online as well about, you're going to hit these 10K months like in 2 weeks and stuff like that. And I think, people need to kind of be a little bit more realistic sometimes. So I always try and share, even inside my membership with clients on social media, I always kind of like to share like the peaks and troughs of running a business, because I think, people need to see and experience the reality of what it's like rather than being sold something that, doesn't actually happen it can happen, but I would say it doesn't happen for most people.
But 100%. I think sometimes there's a lot of social media hype, but at the end of the day, I think when you come at it like we do, and all the women that I've interviewed so far for the podcast, and certainly all the women that are in my, what do you call it? Like they swirl the same way as me, right? Like round the equator. They're on that same wavelength. We're all of the mindset of we're here to do a really good job for the people that we serve, and also to do it in a way that feels really good for us. And I think it's so important to build with that sense of integrity, because in the long run, that's what's actually going to build the business with this really stable support. Yeah.
100%. Like they say, don't they? Like your vibe attracts your tribe and stuff like that. And I think that is so true in business. Since as my business has sort of grown and evolved, I've worked in the past with people who I would say just didn't actually align with me. And I found those things really hard and really tough. But then since being able to actually attract the right people and the people who do align with me in terms of values and, like you said, integrity and honesty, it then just makes everything flow so much easier. The work is easier, it's more fun, and it makes you feel better as well. I think when you work with people who are on your same wavelength, like it just makes it more enjoyable, doesn't it? So nice.
100%. I was thinking orbit. They're in my orbit. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. So tell us a little bit about you then. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be and what kind of drove you to make that big decision to branch out on your own. Because I often think when you start a business, there's a reason, right? Like nobody goes into this rodeo just for the shits and gigs. Like that's not.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I would say there's been like such a long journey for me to get to this point. Like, I've literally always been a creative person. I kind of literally knew from school that always wanted to do something creative. I didn't quite know what it was, but then when I discovered what sort of graphic design was and marketing, and then I went and studied that, it kind of really solidified that for me in terms of, this is what I want to do. But it's not been an easy journey. I was bullied when I was studying. People said my work was shit, but I was just like, no, no, like you've got to keep going, because I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to do well and get the career that I wanted, which obviously I did. I'm currently a lead graphic designer for a company, as well as running my business whilst I build the business up. But the reason why I actually set up the business was basically because I kind of noticed, as I was, developing into my career, and, following even like just small businesses on social media, for example, so many business owners kind of struggled with, standing out and, making their brand unforgettable, is what I always like to say, and kind of just really getting noticed in the online space. And I thought, you know what, I can help people here. Like, I know the difference between a brand that actually makes an impact and a brand that just is just flat. And, and from that I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I kind of wanted to set up the business so that I could, as sort of like, look out for the little guys really, and help them build up into empires through working with me. And as you know, I get, look, it's my passion, it's my joy. I love supporting people with this. And I think when you find something like that you love to do, it just makes sense to do it all the time, right? I mean, I work, as you know, at the minute I work a lot of hours whilst I'm trying to, juggle the hand of working and running a business until I get to the point where I can just do the business. But until then, I'm having so much fun, and so many sort of celebrations and wins supporting the people along the way. And yeah, it's just really nice to be able to see the transformations that others get in their own businesses, and the results that they get through the help that I give. So yeah, that's why I do it. It's my passion.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's so interesting that actually back in the day, people had something to say about your creative work. Like that's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. Yeah, literally. Like I used to like make projects and stuff like that, and we did like a wide range of stuff. We did a bit of graphic design, but we also did some art-based stuff. And I literally remember I was doing some screen printing, which is like a little technique, it's a printing technique. And literally the class was full of girls, and they were literally just whispering and then looking at my work and then like sniggering and stuff like that. And I think things like that obviously really knock you. And at that point, I had gone back to study. So I was like 21 at this point. I wasn't a kid, and I'd never been bullied before in my life. So it really did kind of, knock my confidence. But I knew that what I was doing was working, because I was getting the highest grades in the class. So it kind of makes you think, well, actually, you don't know what you're on about. And funnily enough, the following year, when we went into our second year of doing it, everyone that had picked on me in that first year literally come up to me and apologized and said, "Can you tell me how you got such good grades? Because we failed last year." And I was just like, if you're here, I just think if you are there to do something, just go and do it and focus on that. And it's like even when you're running your own business, there's going to be things that knock you along the way, things that knock your confidence, but it's about remembering why you're doing it and doing it for you, and you're not doing it for someone else. So you just got to kind of obviously absorb the feelings, but then kind of bat it to one side and keep going, because people that quit are the ones that don't get there. So if I'd have quitted, I wouldn't have been where I am now.
No, my goodness. Like, thank you so much for sharing that. I think, do you know, I think when you burn bright, people do always have something to say. And again, you've hit so many key points there, I think, about visibility in general. Like when you start to when you start to stand out, i.e., you're doing really well, or I guess you're just in that place, which you probably were, of just putting your head down and being like, I'm just getting on with my own thing. I'm in my own lane. And that
Yeah.
sets you apart as well. And I think you're right. I think once you start to stand out, you are going to get people who are going to question you. And that can shake your resolve. But you're right. This is a game of like, I always call it anchoring, like anchor yourself in what it is that you want and let
Yeah.
everyone else around you swirl in their own little orbits, is obviously the word of the day, and focus on your orbit and focus where your feet are right now and what you need to do, because I think people will always have something to say, especially if you are doing well at something. That tends to be when the haters come out. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. But I mean, hey, like if people want to hate, especially on social media, all I have to say is like, thanks for the engagement.
Exactly.
Not that I've got loads of haters. I'm quite lucky. Everyone's really lovely in my community because, vibe attracts tribe. But, if haters do come out, I'll just be saying thank you. um,
Boosting my visibility
yeah.
for free. Thank you so much.
Yeah, literally. But you're so right. Like in terms of, staying in your own lane and just focusing on what you're doing is so important. And I think, nowadays as well, you have a lot of like, I like to call it like comparisonitis, especially on the
Yeah.
online space where you're like, oh, someone else is doing so well and they're at this point in their business and they're earning this much and they get to have Fridays off or whatever it is that you want for your life. But I think you have to just kind of remember that actually we're all on our own journey, and where you are today is actually probably a million miles from where you was last month, last year, and it's about remembering those things, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Like 100%. And I love that this has happened, but you're still pursuing what you love. And I can tell, I think because we know each other, I can tell that you adore what you do. And that I think, again, coming back to like your vibe attracts your tribe, like I think it's such a privilege to work with women who you can tell just love what they do and bring that passion and bring that genuine care and attention. I think that really marks you out in the industry as being someone who genuinely shows up and does the thing. And I think for your clients, me being one of them, that joy and integrity that comes with your design work is just incredible, because I think sometimes you
Um,
can get a company that's really good at what it does, and sometimes you get a company that maybe you really like the person, but maybe the service isn't so great, but you bring the whole package. So yeah, this is just basically me like building you up. That's a whole
I'm going to stop
me
in
like
a minute.
I love it. But I would love for you to share with everyone listening, what are those things that you think are really like the linchpins of the person? I know I have my own opinions, right, on what these things are, but what are those things, I guess, more visually, which is not my strong point, but what are those visual things that you think, for everyone listening, make sure that you have these things in place to make things a little bit easier? And because I think that everyone's quite overwhelmed. I think they're overwhelmed with the brand, they're overwhelmed with the social media and the marketing and the all the podcasts that they listen to and everything they read. But what are some small things that they could do to really kind of anchor in their brand and make things a little bit easier for themselves, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, like, one of the key things that I always preach about in terms of your business, your marketing, literally your brand, your visuals, everything is consistency. And, you've got to think about your colors, your fonts, your even your images that you're using. If you can be consistent in the style of which you're creating all your graphics or your website, that is one key thing that's really going to make your brand instantly, recognizable and also seem legitimate as well, because we want to make sure that your business is seen as a credible business. Um, And obviously, consistency does not mean that your Instagram grid has to have the same color on every single post. I always say to people, you can mix and match this as well. But I think as long as you're using a theme as such of, colors, a theme of fonts, maybe like 2 to 3 and no more, then it's going to keep your brand recognizable, keep it polished, and keep it a brand that people can trust. And then secondly, like I'd say another key thing to think about is like readability and legibility. So whenever you're creating anything, before you post it, just look at it and say, can I actually read this? Or even just ask your mum, ask your next door neighbour, ask your partner, ask your friend. Be honest, can you read this? Because I've had it so many times in the past where I've had clients come to me and they've said, oh, I've had my branding done actually by professional graphic designers. No, I'm seeming to find that no one is engaging on my posts, no one is liking anything. And I've looked at that page and I said, hun, I literally can't read what you've written on there. The colours don't contrast well, and even just tweaking the tone of her colours completely transformed her brand while still keeping it in theme of what she was doing. And I think sometimes these are things that people just miss, especially if you don't do this every day, it's not your forte. I know some people aren't visual based people, some people are more logical, or I know like yourself, you're more of a chatty person than
Oh,
writing things down. So
yeah, that's what
so
it's
it's kind of
on that
so
point.
it's kind of
Oh, sorry, love. I was just going to say on that point, there is so much that I've scrolled through on social media because I can't read it, or that it
Mhm.
doesn't, like you say, there's no contrast. And like you say, I'm definitely more of an auditory like learner and consumer than I am anything else. But
Yeah.
there's a line, like it has to be legible. Like no one is going to be squinting at the screen to like the whole point is to capture attention, right? And if people can't
Oh,
read instantly what you're talking about, it's massively off-putting, isn't it?
100%. Like, it's just going to turn people away instantly because if people, oh, it takes like seconds to form an impression. We're very nowadays, in this world, everything is so fast paced. And if something doesn't stop you instantly or you don't understand it instantly, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to scroll past and you're going to ignore it. And, that is why, when you think about iconic brands like, even Nike, for example, we see that tick and we instantly know that it's them, right? So it's about making your brand as unforgettable as them in the way of you want people to recognize you before they've even seen your name, before they've even seen your photo or read your caption on your post. We want them to know, okay, that's Amy with her yellow, we know that it's her because that is what she resembles and what she stands for. But yeah, I would say like another thing, like a final thing that people really kind of do overlook sometimes, especially when it comes to their brand, is I've had a lot of people where they say, I need a logo, right? I need a logo for my brand. And the thing is, sometimes people see this as being like one format, one position. That is it. And we're going to copy and paste that and we're going to use that across everything. And again, like unless you are in tune with this kind of this kind of environment and this kind of world, you might not realize that one size definitely does not fit all, especially in terms of your branding. Even if you can have like a horizontal version and a square version, even just doing that of your logo, like will make a complete difference in terms of how you're presenting yourself. No one wants a massively chunky website navigation bar because your logo is like this shape rather than this shape, so things like that, another good sort of tip to think about. Yeah, but it all
Wow.
helps.
It does though. Like so for context, Charlotte did the branding for the podcast, and now I mean I've got two businesses. I've done loads of my own branding graphics. Like I've been around the block for years with these things. However, when it came to launching the podcast at the start of the year, time capacity is a big thing for me, and
Mm.
as Charlotte knows well, design work is not my favorite. Now, I'm a very creative person, right? I love being creative, but just not with graphics, not with let's build a logo or it's just not my thing, right? It's not my thing. But actually, the biggest thing that I love, obviously it looks amazing, we all know this, but the biggest thing that I love was the availability of different little logos and different templates, I think. And I think this is to your point about having different sized things.
Yeah.
Take time to make yourself a little bit of a brand pack and having templates for whether it's like posts or whether it's, I don't know what else. Oh, there's so many things we use now, right? But having a little bit of a brand pack and that you can just like plug and play things into, it's the dream.
Yeah, it just makes everything easy because then when you go to create, like, for example, a graphic for your social media or a new web page or anything like that, when you've got a template and you've got a brand to follow, you're not having to rewrite the rule book every time. It's already there for you, and you literally just pick and you're done. And it just makes the process so much easier. So although when you're creating your brand, it can sometimes feel like a long slog at the beginning. I mean, not when you work with me, obviously, but for some people, it can feel like that. So I appreciate that, especially if you're trying to make it yourself, for example. But putting in that hard work at the start, it really just makes a massive difference for like running your business and keeping everything smoother for you. Yeah, it just makes it easier, which is good.
And it also brings in, I guess, that consistency element that you were talking about earlier. Like it kind of has, it pulls the threads together much easier for you without you having to just constantly go back, check, does this work, is this in the similar color family? Like it just makes it so much easier if you kind of make those decisions. And no one's saying you can't change it down the line, right? Like I've had lots of different visual representations of my business over the years, but having a consistent approach, especially when most of us are on our own, you might have a VA, you might have some support, but even then, having something that you can just consistently create with, tailoring it, making it a little bit more exciting, but keeping those threads of the brand going through everything that you are actually publishing and creating, which is bringing that consistency, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like, there's nothing to say that you can't, use your brand for 2 to 5 years and then decide that actually, it doesn't align with you anymore. Or, things might have changed, in the services that you offer or something like that. And, some companies even change their entire name, right? So, but there's still ways that you can take, as you say, like threads from your previous branding and align it into the new brand so that actually it still feels like you and people know that it's you, even though you've evolved into this newer, probably more experienced version of yourself. And like I completely rebranded my business a couple of years ago, and it does make a massive difference because even when I look at my old branding, I'm like, that's just not aligned with me anymore. It's not who I am. I like to think that mine reflects my personality a little bit. It's a bit fun, it's a bit bubbly. I think when you're especially like a creative, if I was to have an incredibly boring brand or an incredibly boring social media, especially, doing marketing as well, I think everyone would be like, oh, she doesn't really know what she's doing. So that would be one to explain, wouldn't it, on discovery calls?
Would be a little bit interesting, yeah, for sure. Do you know what's interesting? Because I get so many cold messages. I don't know about you, but I get so many cold DMs. Like people offer me stuff every
Mm.
single day, all the time. And then you click on their profile because you think, firstly, is this legit? Which comes back to your
Yes.
earlier point. Like you want to show people that you are a legitimate business. And they have like maybe three random posts up that have nothing to do with anything that they've pitched in the DMs. And I'm like, yeah, what? Like this,
Yeah, 100%. It completely baffles me when people do like just cold DM you, or you'll have like one message sent each and they're instantly trying to sell to you, or trying to get you into that program or whatever it is. I mean, for me, I think because I'm a service provider, I get an awful lot of coaches, obviously, cold DMing me and stuff like that. And obviously it's great, and I'm always open to learning from new people. I've now got two coaches instead of one. So I'm not saying like don't try it, like you can try it, but I just think there's a much better way about getting people into your world and experiencing what you do rather than just cold DMing. I think connection for me is so much more important. And a service that you're pitching might not be right for that person. You might have a different service that is better for them. So rather than just pitching, like, I don't know, your course that you've got, have you got a membership? Do you do one to one? Like, actually have a conversation and connection with the person first and find out, how they're doing for a start. And, do they feel they would need support or do they not, before you start trying to, sell to them.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But then, as we're saying, if as a business owner, if you are going to be out there having conversations with people, and me, I advocate for genuine, authentic conversation only. It's just so gross to just immediately shove yourself down people's throats. However, if they then come to your Instagram or your Facebook or your website, you want it to say what it needs to say and demonstrate that what you're seeing in the DMs is exactly the same as what's on your website, is exactly the same as what's on your Instagram.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's that integrity piece, isn't it? Of not saying like, oh, I'm going to do XYZ, and then they follow through and have a look, and then there's nothing there. And I think having that ability to have consistency over everywhere that you're visible builds that trust, it builds that integrity, and it also, I think, helps with connection. I think it can go a
Yeah.
long way to making sure that you're not spending your days cold DMing people out of desperation, because that's just not where it's at, is it?
100%, 100%. Like, I think authenticity is so key, and just being honest with people about and meeting them where they're at, because everyone's in different situations, and if you can accommodate to them rather than trying to fit them into a box, I think it's a much nicer way to go about supporting people. It's so funny how you talk about the whole trust factor, of your website and your social media, because I was literally having this conversation with one of my social media clients earlier this week. And, when they hired me, although we are, increasing and growing their socials, that wasn't why they hired me. They actually hired me just to create that consistency and that trust with their brand, because at the time, dealing with social media was kind of getting battered around the staff members, and no one kind of really took it on seriously. And now that they've done that, they've actually had competitors in that same industry get in touch with them and say, wow, like, we love your social media and we've just found you through this. And then we've gone onto your website and everything just feels connected. So it's so true, like with your marketing, it needs to feel like you wherever you are, whether you are messaging people, whether you are creating a landing page, creating a brand, putting out content. Like, I mean, we all use a bit of chat GPT now and then, but I think, you've still got to make things sound like you. If you are using AI and things like that, don't just copy and paste it from there. Use it as a tool to support you, and then look at it and rewrite it in a way that sounds like the way that you speak and your tone of voice. I think absolutely we can use things, as tools to support us, but at the end of the day, people follow you and work with you for you, not for AI. So if it doesn't sound like you, people are going to switch off. So, even things like that make a big difference, I think.
Yeah. What's your general thoughts on the rise of AI? I don't really, I literally asked ChatGPT to help me with a mechanical issue in my sister's car because my dad and I couldn't figure out where we were trying to fix his car. And I was like, I'm going to try ChatGPT. It gave me a good answer actually, but I do use it now and again for business, but it's not my favorite for like, you know me, I'm very wordsy. Like I like
Mm-hmm.
to write my own copy. That's just kind of how I am. I sometimes use it to bat ideas back and forward or to, kind of develop strategies or plans alongside kind of other things that I'm doing. But what's your general view on AI and how would you best use it as, like you say, that supporting tool rather than letting it take it over and expecting that to build a brand for you?
Yeah, so I I know like a lot of people are very pro AI, and I'm not anti AI or anything like that. I do use AI as a supportive tool, and by that I mean in a similar way to you. I'll use it to brainstorm ideas, and I might say, "Oh, I'm thinking of creating this. Have I missed anything out of this that could be valuable?" Because sometimes your brain does forget, and then it just like triggers those responses, then doesn't it? And you're like, "Oh, actually, yeah, I do need to talk about that as well." And it's just a case of using it, I think, as guidance, rather than copying and pasting. I think it's a really handy tool to, save time and, and brainstorm effectively, and feel like in some ways you're not trying to do everything on your own. But I think, and if you are sort of having a day where you're really struggling and you're like, I just can't get started with this, then absolutely use it as a tool to get you started. But I think at the end of the day, if you're using it to write, all of your courses, all of your modules, all of your content, then actually, like, what are you doing from you? Like, I think the human brain and the things that come from us are the things that are the most crucial and the things that make more of an impact. So, I really value, just using it as a supportive tool, and then actually expanding on that with your own knowledge and your own things that you believe in and that you trust in, to actually help get people results. Because I think that AI just can't replace that. I don't think it can fully replace a human, whether it's creating a logo, whether it's writing copy or anything like that. I think it's not there yet. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day it will be, but I think for now it's just it's a nice to have tool that helps, I think, if you're feeling stuck and you just need a bit of nudging along the way, is what I would say.
Yeah, it's a bit of efficiency, isn't it? In my opinion, anyway. Of course, everyone has their own opinions about its usability and effectiveness, but I think you're right. I think we get to, I mean, you know me well enough now. Like, I really do think that the more we can bring our authentic voice to everything we do, the better. And that doesn't mean that you can't use things to speed things up or to, have systems in place that do make things easier. Of course, I'm always going to advocate
Mhm.
for that. But when it comes to what you're actually trying to achieve, you're probably going to need to use your own voice. And your chat GBT will only get you so far because, like you say, it can't replace your personality. It can't replace your stories. It can't replace all of those things that make you you, which are actually what are really magnetic to other human beings. Do you know?
Exactly, because people, at the end of the day, like people work with you because they want to work with you, not AI. If they wanted to work with AI, they would just go talk to AI and do it themselves. It's when I think whenever we're, doing anything in terms of our business, it's us as a personal brand that really, it kind of wins people over, right? Because there's probably people out there, like as you were saying earlier, like at the start of this session, where, some people might be good at what they do, but might not have the same kind of level of personality that you align with. And then vice versa. Some people might have a great personality, but maybe they're terrible at telling you about ETAs, or they're terrible at emails or something like that. So, it's kind of using like all your skills that you have and showcasing that to the world that's going to draw in the right people just by being yourself.
Then I watched this really interesting podcast. I can't remember what the guy's name was, but he's basically like a communication expert, I think is the best way to put it. And the conversation was very much about how you can be the most experienced at what you do. Like, you can be tip top of your ability or anyone's ability in your kind of industry. But if you can't communicate that, if you can't communicate your value, if you can't communicate the value of what you do, it means nothing, right?
Yeah.
You need both to be an expert in what you do and to be able to communicate effectively what it is that you do, right? Like, we need both. And I think this is why people really struggle with brand and marketing and all of these things, is because they're really good at what they do, but they haven't quite learned how to communicate that yet. And that's maybe not their strong point. And that's okay. That's why Charlotte exists, right? Like, or, if it's speaking and getting your voice out, that's why I exist. Like, there are people out there to help you with that, but I do think it's a massive struggle. I think people struggle to communicate the value of what they do, but until people know the value of what they do, your business is going to stay exactly where it is, no matter how good you are at your job. Like, you
Hmm.
have to be able to communicate it visually, literally, however else, and have it stand out in the world of all these other, not even just all these other people, right? It's like AI you're competing against now. And so the thing that
Yeah.
stands out is your authentic self, your authentic experience, and your ability to communicate it, right? In my opinion.
100%. Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree, like with all of that. Being authentic and being yourself, that's just what people are drawn to. I think even in terms of like if you are starting a business or you've got a business and it's running, just making sure that you're positioning yourself in the right ways to, who you want to work with and why and how. And I mean, gosh, like when I started this business like 4 years ago, I was so naive into, marketing and positioning myself because even though I knew how to do it for everyone else, I couldn't even think how to do it for myself. And it took, a long time for me to kind of work that out. And doing that changed everything completely for me because I was undercharging massively. It was a complete waste of my time running my business. I couldn't scale it, I couldn't grow it, I couldn't even get clients at the time because I struggled with showcasing that value to other people. And I wasn't seen as a premium brand. And then working on my brand, on my self worth, on my value, and obviously on my skills as well. We can always grow and develop, which I always am doing. I'm always learning new software, learning new things because you have to keep growing and evolving. But, if I hadn't have took a step back and said, okay, well, something's not working here. And if I hadn't have gone to change that and change that positioning, you don't grow, you don't evolve, you don't adapt. So it's something that you do sometimes. And I think, I'd encourage to anyone who's listening to this right now to be like, okay, where am I in my business right now? Is this where I want to be? And is there something that I'm doing or not doing, to kind of really align with the right people and scale in the way that I actually want to?
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. I love that you brought a reminder just to check in because I think sometimes we get so busy just doing the thing that we forget to just have that
Mhm.
moment and be like, okay, wait a minute. Are there some things that need tweak? Because sometimes it's not like a burn your business to the ground and restart, right? Like
No.
most of the time, it's actually tweaks. It's tweaks here and there with messaging, maybe visuals, maybe just streamlining things, making it more consistent. Like it's not always this big, huge problem we make it up to be, right? Like sometimes there's an easy fix.
Yeah, 100%. Like sometimes just making like a tiny adjustment, like to anything, and whether it's in your business or even in your personal life, like I realized about 6 months ago that I was kind of really not prioritizing my sleep, and even though I was thinking, oh, it's great because I'm staying up late and I'm getting this stuff done, the next day I would find that I would work, half as fast because I'd not prioritized sleep. So it's even little things like just tweaking, just going to bed an hour earlier, just getting some exercise in, just anything. And nobody's perfect, and I'm the same in that sometimes I'm very much in the business rather than on it. So every now and then I kind of take a step back and I'm like, whoa, 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 like who am I? What am I doing? Like I need to step back and think about where I'm going with this because there's only so much you can do when you're in it rather than on it.
100%. But this is, I love that point because that really brings us to the value of having other people around you that can pull you back off that ledge almost, right? Like
Mhm.
I've got so many incredible women in my inbox every day who I'm like, who will call me out and be like, you're working too much. Have you done anything for yourself this week? Like, how like how do you need to chill out and like make the kids a beige dinner? Like, just take a moment. And I think we need that community around us to know us well enough to say, okay, it's great that you're pushing, it's great that you're doing all the things, but actually, do you need to take a step back? Like, are you too close to the thing to see it? Like, do you need to take a moment and a step back? And you're right, again, when we can bring our authentic self, which is represented visually through our brand, it means that we attract not just the right aligned clients, but also the right kind of community and support around us, because we need that when we're entrepreneurial. Like, you need it, because I think us creatives push, like we want to do it, want to do it, and sometimes it's actually harder to learn how to pull back.
I mean, I think it's because as well, like, it goes back to saying, when you love what you do, just keep going and keep going. And then, my partner will come in and will be like, Shah, like, come on, like, it's 11 o'clock. Like, turn the laptop off. go get in bed. You've got to be up at 5:30. Do you know what I mean? So I think sometimes it's just nice having people in your corner, as you like, kind of reminding you, obviously supporting you along the way, and being there for you, and being proud of you and all the things. But it's good to have those people in your corner that are just sort of checking in and being like, are you okay? Like, do you need to have a break? Like, can you take a night off here? Or, what can you do to kind of get your energy back? Because yeah, I think if you're not feeling like your full self, it can impact everything, can't it? So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
100%. You know me, I'm a big fan. Like, work on your energy first because everything's so much easier after that, for sure. Oh my goodness, I'm conscious of time. Charlotte's in demand. She's got other places and spaces to be this evening, but I want to say a massive thank you for coming and sharing your journey and giving us such actionable steps to reflect on with our brand as well.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, I've really enjoyed it. I know we've been planning this for literally since I did the branding, so it's so nice to finally be on here and yeah, just have a nice conversation. And obviously, I'll get you inside my membership soon as well, so you
Oh,
can come in there.
yes. We're busy ladies. We've got lots to do. But
Yeah.
thank you so much, Charlotte. And I will link all of her details below. Go and say hello to her on Instagram. Check it out. Check out what she can do. She is representing
Yeah.
her brand very well over there. And we will see you all in the next one.